Hello, I'm Ruben Quintero, the author of my mother's scrapbook, El Rancho Don's Football, 1966 National Champions. The book memorializes essentially the successful 1966 football year at El Rancho High School in Pico Rivera, California. The book is primarily a reproduction of my mother's scrapbook, who, while I was playing football that year, she was very quietly gathering together and meticulously every local newspaper article she could find and put it into a scrapbook for me. The scrapbook is, of course, at 2020, 54 years later, essentially fallen apart. I decided to reproduce it and further even decided to memorialize it in a book that somewhat replicates the scrapbook appearance and also includes my high school annual football photographs that some of my fellow students put in there in that year. For Southern California high school football and for El Rancho, it was a miracle year in 1966. The team had an undefeated record of 13-0, shut out 6 opponents, scored 517 points, and allowed only 68. It won the 4A, which was the largest division at the time, the 4A CIF-Southern Section Championship, by defeating Anaheim High School 35-14 in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum on December 16, 1966. The team's legendary coach, Ernie Johnson, was recognized as Coach of the Year, and the team was honored as both California State and National Champions. 5 of El Rancho's players were also selected to the All-CIF football team, which was a pretty incredible achievement at the time, at least. This video is comprised of the images from that book, in case anyone's interested. It's available on Amazon, and all royalties to the book will be donated to El Rancho High School, of course, my alma mater. We had 50 roster players, and we were quite lucky. We had 25 returning lettermen in 1966. So essentially half of the team was already varsity lettered. So El Rancho had an incredible depth as a team, which I think enabled Coach Johnson to platoon his team as he did. I had 1, 2, even a third team and all of which were, I thought, very good and very strong teams. In effect, Ernie Johnson could play a chess master with substitutions throughout the season. He knew every one of his players quite well, and I think he was excellent at doing that. He made the most of us as a team, and I think we all, in a sense, kind of recognize that after all these years. We are all now at least in our 70s, so these are old. We are old men now, but we remember what the value of sacrifice, hard work, practice, and the kind of focus on fundamentals that Ernie Johnson emphasized, how that ultimately paid off. I have witnessed so many high school games. I had 4 sons who played at El Rancho, and I think many of those teams were just as good, maybe, as we were. Luck is always a factor. I think we were a good team. I think we executed well. We didn't have many complex plays, but the plays that we executed them pretty well. Ernie Johnson believed in playing everybody as often as he could. He played his players as much as possible, and so our achievement is really a collective achievement. Though the standout players are clearly recognized in the many articles that are included in my mother's the book, my mother's scrapbook. In fact, I recall that many many of the starters thought that other players in their position seemed to play more than they did because we were so incredibly successful in our season. Oftentimes, Coach Johnson, that's one thing I applaud him for. He did not really, as well as we did offensively in terms of collecting points, he really did not want to embarrass or hurt or humiliate ever his opponents. And so he would pull out one platoon and put in another and then put in another, replace players to give everybody an opportunity to play. Fortunately, we were so well coached that ultimately the final result was that we would win our games, and we would win them maybe better than he perhaps expected, certainly that I expected. The fact of the matter was that we were a team, and fortunately very quickly became confident that we were a pretty good team, and that Coach Johnson and his staff were pretty good coaches. Maybe I'm a little bit understating, but certainly I think Coach Johnson's statistics speak for themselves. Coach Johnson's great emphasis on execution and on every player's pride in executing effectively, in a way made any single player, I think, dispensable, because we function well as a team. For example, I thought Rick Pope was a great quarterback, and I enjoyed blocking for him. But I also thought that my longtime grammar school friend, Fred Tippett, was also just as great. He was a very fine quarterback, and I enjoyed blocking for him too. I thought both were studs, and both proved to me that it was well worth my executing a punishing block as well as I could, because it would pay dividends for our team's success. This depth was something that could be seen in other positions. We had people who had worked hard all year long, and it showed when they had an opportunity to play. So I learned that anyone else in our team, in my position, certainly, who would play with passion and toughness and deserved our admiration and support as well. We came, I think, to really truly be a band of brothers, as I thought. Certainly towards the end of the season, we sort of fused as a team. And Coach Johnson taught us these attitudes. Hard work and sacrifice with a little bit of luck will win the day. And so it's nothing really complex in the sense that we all can do that. We all can work hard and be willing to sacrifice, and maybe there will come an opportunity when everything will come together. And this memorialization is in this YouTube video as well as in the book are meant to sort of remind us all that however, we were a public school. We were not able to recruit as many of the private schools that we competed against, who were excellent and great teams. But it was pretty impressive what he did. In retrospect, having been an academic who's been steeped in literature in the past for so many years and throughout my career, I look back at Coach Johnson. I see him very much in the tradition of the ancient Greeks, who had a concept of arete, A-R-E-T-E, arete, which was a kind of excellence. This is something that could be seen and demonstrated in athletic competition. And it wasn't unusual for the ancient Greek audience to applaud a second-place runner who gave such a tremendous effort to try to win, but ultimately lost a race, that they would oftentimes ignore actually the first-place winner. Maybe this is something that we should learn to practice as well. I've just been looking at the World Series with the Dodgers and all that, and I thought the opponents that they played were quite good, and I marveled at how excellent they were in their application. And I think that is what athletics today, certainly not just professional athletics, but college and high school sports is able to do, enabling all competitors to realize a certain kind of arete, a certain kind of excellence. And the word athlete, too, really has embedded in it etymologically the idea of contest, the idea of competition, having an antagonist, some kind of agony, some kind of suffering, or self-imposed suffering is a part of that. So I think we make too much of people, being winners and number one and all that. But I think our team is just only one of many examples of a team that happened to win, but it was only a confirmation of the more important, I think, principles of sacrifice and hard work and application and the willingness to practice and sacrifice. In 1970, Ernie Johnson became the coach there for Newport Harbor High School. 1970 was my blank year. I was in Vietnam and in the middle of the jungle. I knew nothing of this until many years later. I searched for this, the documentary, I think it's B&P Films, Touchdown Newport, and finally was able to see it. And it was incredible that Ernie Johnson taught another team, another school at Newport Harbor, the same kinds of attitudes that we had learned when he was our coach. And I was very impressed by that documentary, and I would recommend it for anybody who's a football historian or interested in those kinds of achievements. It's quite a story. Anyway, I pulled a small number, I hope a fair use, responsible amount of clips from that for John, in which Johnson reveals many of the things I've already mentioned, and I'll play them for you.
My main idea as a coach was it was an opportunity to help use a kid's interest in football. It gave you a way to make him a better, productive person. It was not Pop Warner. This is not club football. We're not out here to have fun. We're out here to knock folks on their butt. I must have spent 5 years, man, and I worked all the time. It cost me a couple wives and things like that, but.
Well, it was like nothing else I've ever had in my life, as far as somebody having an impact on your life. He was in all parts of your life. It was like having your father with you, for me anyway. And my father was the most important man in my life, but Ernie was that guy that you wanted to do so well for. He was, let me apologize here.
I'm, without question, as rich a person as you've ever met. I don't have things, I don't have money, but I have all you guys. You'll remember the things, not that you have, but the thing that you were. And when people talk about you, they will say, you know, he was a pretty good guy.
In this next sequence of photographs, these were taken from the Por el Año, the El Rancho annual for 1967, the year I graduated. We have, Ernie Johnson looking debonair there. And, of course, him in a more animated posture. And then, of course, relaxing on a couch. He was a man who was well-focused. He works hard. And he was always, in a sense, a kind of presence wherever he was at. He had an excellent coaching staff. in the annual, there were four of our coaches. Frank Montera, he is the defensive back coach. Then we have Gene Farrell, who was a defensive line coach. Then we have Gordon Everett, who was the offensive back coach, and then Phil Oram, who was the offensive line coach. And it was quite obvious that they were very much excellent, supportive coaches. I enjoyed interacting with all of them. They were good people. There were two other coaches too who helped us variously. Marty Blackstone, I think he was at Rio Hondo at the time. I'm not certain about that, but I think so. And Tank Harris, another important coach, was not around that year, but they did help us certainly in the year before, in the 1965 season. As I said before, there were 50 roster players, and of course I can't discuss them all in this YouTube video. This photograph here indicating starters for El Rancho is of course tentative. Manny Chavez is not in there. I'm missing John Camarillo, 89, will be really a premier defensive end actually as the season rolls on. There are many other players who will go in and out of this sort of starting place position. In this next photo, we have the co-captains. Jim Collins, a fabulous linebacker, truly impressive in terms of his precocity at linebacking. He was actually, I think, suited up for the freshman year when El Rancho played against Loyola in the Coliseum, but he certainly was a fine counterpart to Brad Fielder, the other linebacker, but he was a co-captain. So is Rick Pope. Rick Pope is the other, and in this sort of photograph here, we have them. I think it's the schedule that's on that sticker that Coach Johnson is putting on the football, and that other gentleman there, I think his name, I forget. We had some excellent team pictures. Here's the varsity and the JV squad all together intact. Again, even those who were juniors, there are many fine players, but because our seniors, we had so many seniors and who had lettered and so on, really wasn't much space, but they were a fine bunch there in the JVs, and even coming up behind them. In 1968, Ernie Coach Johnson will sort of repeat his feat of winning the CIF, tying, I think, with St. Paul. I think it was a 2020 game. The individual photographs are to be found in the El Rancho annual. I also put them up in the book, my mother's scrapbook, and one can actually look at them individually. One might entitle this whole thing, "We Were Young Once and Champions." It is quite interesting to see oneself and all of your teammates so young and so optimistic, and it's a great sort of collection of individual photographs that were done by the annual students. El Rancho will have a 13-game season, and it had two preseason games, one against Santa Ana Valley and the other against La Mirada. The El Rancho the Dons play the Santa Ana Valley Falcons at Santa Ana Stadium on Friday, September 23rd, 1926. You might note that the program has printed the wrong date. It indicates September 21. That should be September 23rd. Santa Ana Valley was the league titleist the year before, and I don't think this was an accident. Interestingly, it will be the Anaheim Colonists who will win the Sunset League this year of 1966, and will meet El Rancho Dons in the LA Coliseum for the 4A CIF title in December 16th, actually. In this Friday night game, this first very preseason game, El Rancho will shut out Santa Ana Valley 19 to nothing. El Rancho quarterback Rick Pope will complete 2 touchdown passes to Manny Chavez and to Dave Patterson. Pope will connect on 9 of 14 passes for 138 yards. The El Rancho defensive squad would hold the Falcons to only 26 yards and no first downs in the first half. This impressive victory over Santa Ana Valley, the 1965 Sunset League champions, will boost El Rancho to number 3 on the 4A CIF Top 10 ranking schools. Just above Anaheim, actually, which will be number 3, which was coached by another legend, another fine coach, Claire Van Horebeck. Centennial is ranked number 2 on that list, boasting the renowned speedster Mickey Curitan, who was CIF Player of the Year before 1965, and will be the same, receive the same award of CIF Player of the Year in 1966. Mickey Curitan enabled really Centennial to beat El Rancho, to beat us, the Dons, and it's one and only season loss the year before, which was the final game. We felt, I think, we did very well, but we did not win. Okay, modern day, the 1965 4A CIF champion is at that time ranked number 1 in the CIF rankings. The 4A CIF Southern Section Division is of course, at that time, the largest high school division in California. The second preseason game was against the La Mirada Matadors at the Dawn Stadium on September 30. El Rancho will have its highest scoring game in El Rancho history, actually, at the time, at least, 53-6. 3 different El Rancho quarterbacks scored TDs. Rick Pope scored 3, Fred Tippett 2, and Dennis Morrison, a very talented backup quarterback, scored 1. Edmund Perez catches a Tippett TD pass. Manny Chavez scampers 58 yards and only 6 carries, and also Manny catches a Pope TD pass. John Camarillo, who will develop a tremendous talent at blocking kicks, punts. It's pretty incredible. Already, I think, has 3 with this game. He blocks 2 punts in this game against the La Mirada Matadors. Dave Patterson contributes also with his PATs, and Gary Preby recovers a fumble. One of the toughest guys I knew on that team. In the third game of the season, El Rancho will have its first Pacific League contest. El Rancho was in the San Gabriel Valley League the year before, 1965, and we were moved to the Pacific League. Anyway, the El Rancho Dons beat Arcadia High School 45-6 at their stadium on October 7. In that game, in the first half, Rick Pope tosses 2 TD passes to Jim McPherson, and in the second, Fred Tippett 1 TD pass to Dave Patterson. Pope will, in that game, complete 6 of 9 passes for 74 yards. These photos are drawn from my mother's scrapbook. The first photo here we have, it's the second quarter of the Arcadia game. We see quarterback Rick Pope, number 10, carries the ball in a sweep around the right end for 11 yards. Halfback Bob Castrian, number 24, is there on the ground after executing the block. Right guard Bob Arciaga and right tackle Gary Preby, number 75, are chasing in the back of the photo. In this next photo, we see Rick Pope, the quarterback, rushing forward. In this next photo, we have the linebacker Chuck Murray, 64. He intercepts a pass to set up a score. The defensive back, Danny Humphreys, was number 85. He's basically responding there at the back of the picture. And in this next photo, halfback Manny Chavez, number 20, is outrunning the pursuing Arcadia players. I must say, I first saw Manny perform when we were in grammar school. I think I was in the 8th grade. I saw him at a track meet in Rivera, and I saw him broad jump and win all the sprints there in that track meet. I couldn't believe he was such a fine athlete, and fortunately he was on the team that in my senior, we were both the same year, and we were both on the same team, and I felt very fortunate for having his tremendous athletic talents. In this next photo, El Rancho ranks number 3 in the top 10 4A CIF schools. In the 4th game of the season, it's the second Pacific League contest, and it happens to be the homecoming game. This occurred on October 14th. The El Rancho Dons routed the Alhambra Moors 44-0. It was a one of 6 shutouts in the season. The halftime score was 25-0, and El Rancho had allowed just 2 first downs to the Moors, and did not allow Alhambra to penetrate beyond the El Rancho 42-yard line. In the first quarter, Danny Guerrero, my good friend, had a knack for interceptions and recovering fumbles. He recovers a fumble that was recovered. He caused the fumble that was recovered by Danny Humphreys. There were 5 interceptions in this game, with one 50-yard touchdown return by linebacker Jim Collins. And then, of course, another very durable, valiant fullback was Guy Pico and Bob Castrian. Each of them scored 2 touchdowns. And Bob Ruff and Tim Snyder each had a TD apiece. Dave Patterson and Tim McPherson each scored a PAT. In this first photo, we have the homecoming queen, Joanne Defoe, and the senior and the junior and the sophomore princesses. In the this next photo, receiver Jim McPherson, number 88, catches a pass in the Alhambra game. In the this next photo, we have the Times Post front page, which featured the El Rancho's dazzling homecoming queen and her court, and of course indicating the score there. In El Rancho's first 4 games, it already has scored 161 points and has allowed only 12 points against the Dons. And now in the top 10 CIF rankings, El Rancho now ranks number 2. above Centennial and below number 1 ranked Mater Dei. In the interest of time, I'm just going to simply run the images that were drawn from my mother's scrapbook, and just let them speak for themselves. Clearly, video making is not my bailiwick, and my voice is pretty bad. So I think I'll just leave you with this. Just run through the remaining images. I was next at Montebello, the Montebello Oilers, who were beaten by 41 to 0. Whittier, an incredible achievement, I think, given that Bob Chandler, the well-known professional football player, was their leader, their quarterback, and he was a marvelous human being. He wrote us a letter, actually, as I recall, that just exhibited his own his own excellence, his own a good character. He really appreciated his game against us, even though unfortunately they lost. Mark Keppel 53 to 0, Almani 60 to 6, Monrovia 41 to 15, and so on. We had Pius X, Blair, Lakewood, and Anaheim to follow. But if you're really interested, you really maybe want to take a look at my mother's scrapbook. I try to make it as available as possible. Actually, if you're an Amazon member, you can actually look at it for free. I'm not interested in anything more than just simply memorializing a rather, I thought, a very impressive year. Certainly, it was one of the greatest years of my life. Those 4 months that we played in that last season. So I'll just let it go at this, okay? Thank you.